Okay guys, so in this particular session I'm gonna basically show you some basic stuff with dictionaries, sort methods, for loops, and tuples, I think they're called, or tuples. So a dictionary is different to a list and a string because it basically holds two things, a key and a value. So key could be like a family member, and the value could be like the name of that family member. And it could be basically anything, classmates, it could be basically whatever you want to store. It could be fruit and some kind of quantity like size. It doesn't really matter what the value is, like size, and key could be type of fruit or type of vegetable, as long as you understand what it's storing. So its advantage is it has a value with a particular key. So these are particularly good with like chatbots and this kind of thing. So without further ado, let's just get into it and show you how to do a string. So let's create a dictionary. Let's call it dictionary rather. Family. Let's do family members. I'm going to use the curly braces for this. And you've got to do the quotation dad, your dad, and you have to use the colon to ascribe the value. Dad's name is Steve, and then to separate each one you use the comma, and then the next family member is mom. Please use the quotations, follow this. If you do not follow the syntax, you will get an error. Use the colon. Your mom's name is Lisa, close it, and you have a brother, and and his name is Jimbo Jr. So that's basically your dictionary sorted. So to know whether you've done this correctly, you can see a little cross there. You might say, oh my god, invalid syntax, let's check this. This might be invalid because I've done this. No, I know why it's invalid. Didn't do equals, so that would have come up as a syntax error. Now I just do print and then use this the simple parentheses, family, print family. That should work. Bang, it works. Dad, Steve, Mum, Lisa, brother, Jim. So that's basically the full dictionary. So I mean, these are really useful. You could have a massive dictionary with tons of thousands of items. You know, you could be all these different information with different categories and so forth. So using dictionaries can be very useful. That's all I'm going to say with big data. Print family. Now we want to, let's say, print not just all the entire dictionary, but we want to print. We want to know what your mom's name is. To do that, within the brackets, put in a squared brackets, and then put in mom like that. And I believe that's correct. We'll find out. Lisa. There we are. So it calls a name. So you want to know your mom's name. The value is Lisa. Remember, the key is mom. So key pulls her name Lisa from that. So it basically says print from the dictionary family the value of your of the key mom, the member mom basically, and it pulls back her name. So if you wanted to let's say do it a different way, calling, let's say, all just the values, we have to create a for loop for that. So this is your first time you're looking at a for loop. So there's the function for and k and v. So you call it k and v because it's key and the values v. So it already knows you're using a dictionary. Python knows it, so you don't have to ascribe any names for these. For k and v, it already knows what they are. In, you have to say in what dictionary. It's in the dictionary called family. So for k and v in family, and then you just put dot. So these, by the way, are what's called methods. Methods are basically functions within an object. We're going to get into object-oriented programming in the next session. I'm going to show you how to create classes, how to create attributes. All you have to know at this stage is what we're calling up now is a method. A method is a function. So print is a function, but we call them methods when they exist within objects. Remember, Python is an object-orientated language, so the new languages are object-orientated. And I don't come from a programming background, so I never had the kind of had to experience time before object-orientated programming. But I remember watching something before, it was a Steve Jobs documentary, and he was talking about his visit to, I think it was Xerox PARC, and he said, they were doing all this innovative stuff, and he saw like 3 things that blew his mind. It was like the mouse, the very first mouse, it was object-orientated programming, and it was the internet. This is back in like the 70s, and he basically said, the mouse and the object-orientated programming blew his mind. He didn't even see the applications of the internet at the time, because they were so, these are very, very early computers. He just saw I think it was the very first graphical user interface. We take all this stuff for granted, but they had to develop through time. So object-orientated language was one of these things you just thought was absolutely amazing. And we take it for granted. So though it's a pain to understand what a method is, what a function is, and how to build classes and all this kind of stuff, it saves you so much time because you can recall these objects, and all the attributes of these objects are stored. So it just saves you huge amount of time as a programmer. So please bear with me. We're going to get into how to create objects in the very next session, but I just have to get through dictionaries and all this kind of stuff. So let's continue with our for loop. So the one we have to create is something called items. So it's called items. So this is an inbuilt method. Remember, it's basically, just think of it as a function built into Python. But it's called a method again because it's under this thing called an object. And I will go through that in more detail in the next session to really make that clear. Then you need the curly brackets, and then you need the colon. So that's basically how to call the method. So you just need dot items, curly brackets, and colon. And then if I just press enter, you can see it's already tabbed in. That means Python knows. This is a good thing with using these kind of Spyder interfaces, because it knows you're doing a function, so it highlights the functions for you. If you're just using like Notepad, it wouldn't do that. So if you made a mistake, you wouldn't know where the mistake is. It's much harder to find. A Spyder knows where it's doing it, tabs it in for you. So it's basically for this. Now, what do you want to do? You want to print something. So you want to print. Let's do it 3 different ways. K plus V is basically going to print back everything. Dad is Steve, mom is Lisa, brother is Jim. If we just want the values, we can do it like this. Here we are, just the names. So these are the values: Steve, Lisa, Jim. It's just pulling back the names. Let's say you just want the family members. You do K for key. Remember, key, value, V for value. Dad, mom, brother. So it's a very easy way of pulling back information. So that's your very first for loop. So understanding for loops is a big feather in your cap. You've just done your very first for loop. Well done. Now I have to show you a tuple. I hate tuples. Tuple is basically the most boring thing, and let's just call it new tuple. No, let's not call it tuple because that's calling something. Let's just call it new. Yeah, you can call it whatever you want. I mean, it can literally be like, let's just call it that. Equals curly brackets, not curly brackets, parentheses. Let's say you've got some numbers, 43, 54. Now, all this is doing basically is assigning numbers to this thing called a tuple. And that's basically, you can't change it, you can't modify it, you can't concatenate it, you can't slice it, you can't index it, you can just call it back. So it's got far less functionality than the dictionaries or the lists, but you just have to understand it. So if I'm going to print something, if I just want to call it back, obviously I have to now copy this word because it's a silly word I made up. Paste it, and then it calls it back. But that's the only thing that it can do. So we're done with tuples, and I'm glad, but I had to show you because it is a big, if you got to the later stages and you didn't know what a tuple is and you saw it in the documentation, you'd be like, oh my god, I don't know what this thing is. And in the end of the day, now you know what they are. So there's one thing left to do, and let's try to do it without screwing this up. It's the sort method. So the sort method, are basically, let's say you've got something like, let's just call it a let's call it new list, all in one like that, or let's even have a underscore like that. New list equals square brackets, and we can have, let's say, 32, 52, 22, 7, let's say 99. And we want to sort this. Now to sort it, you have to do new, you have to call it back, new underscore list, new underscore list dot sort. Again, this is a sort method. Again, a good thing with Spyder, it pulls up the potential methods, so it lets you know what methods exist. And there we are, sort comes up, so it does exist. Sort, and again, use the little curly brackets, and if I then print new underscore, what is it called, lists, fingers crossed this works. Bingo, it's worked. So what it's done there is basically reassigned your lists and sorted it from small to large. So 7 was the 1, 2, 3, 4th position of using index. It would be 0, 1, 2, 3. Now it is the first position, or index 0. Remember, always keep that in mind with Python indexing. It's index 0. So 7, 22, 32, 52, 99. That's all the sort method is doing. So it's good to understand something about the methods. I'll actually go on to the official documentation, the Python site eventually, and just show you how to find all that information. The more you know about the inbuilt methods, the better. So that's a sort method. So I've shown you 2 methods, items and sort, today. That's fantastic. And I think we have done, yes, hurrah, we have done everything. So that's it for today. Now we're going to get into object-oriented programming, and we're getting closer to building our very first neural network. So thank you guys so much. Please subscribe and like the channel, and I shall produce something pretty soon. Ciao.